Welcome, Dr. Kirk and COMS 622 classmates to the discussion of Chapter 2, The Changing Environment of Organizations. Next slide. The way organizations are conducting business is changing at a rapid pace. There are 5 key components surrounding an organization that will affect change. Those are diversity, globalization, technology, ethics in corporate governance or ethics in corporate compliance, and employment relations. This chapter talks about engaging new employees. However, I would like to think that it's important to engage all employees, old and new, when it comes to relations within the organization. Next slide. Diversity and inclusion. Diversity plays a major part in changing the environment of businesses. Typically, when you hear the word diverse or diversity, you tend to think of different cultures. However, diversity is much more than just culture. You can be in a room with people who look exactly like you and yet be amongst a group of diverse individuals. They might think different, they might act different, they might come up with solutions different than you. We'll discuss this more in a bit. Inclusion is making everyone feel important and getting everyone involved in the decision-making processes. This allows the individual to feel just as important when it comes to ideas and innovations. I am sure that everyone's familiar with the old cliche, 2 heads are better than 1. At the hospital where I work, we conduct short 5-minute meetings daily, and we call these huddles. Now, during huddle time, it allows everyone to voice their opinions, submit new ideas, and create processes to help maintain daily processes. And although this might sound like it takes a long period of time, it really doesn't. It only takes 5 to 10 minutes of our day. Next slide. There are 5 types of diversity within an organization that this chapter talks about. 1 is surface level diversity. This is where you can actually see differences such as gender, race, age, ethnicity, and physical abilities. 2, deep level diversity. These are differences that are not visible, such as personal goals, values, personalities, and attitude. Number 3, separation diversity. These are the differences in positions or opinions between group members reflecting disagreements or opposition. Number 4, variety diversity. Differences in certain group members' expertise, knowledge, or functional background. And finally, disparity diversity. This is the differences in rank, pay, decision-making authorities, and/or status. Next slide. As I stated earlier, it is important that everyone has a feeling of inclusion within an organization. However, there are barriers that can interfere with inclusion, invoking a feeling of exclusion among employees. Here on this slide, there are some examples of some of the types of barriers that organizations have to deal with. Also in the second column are some solutions that organizations can or have considered. And on the third column is just some biblical solutions to some of those barriers. So the first barrier, the like me bias. This barrier is a little bit of human nature. People tend to want to gravitate towards other people who are just like them, who act like them, who have the same processes as they do. Considerations of others could be a solution to help the like me bias. If you think about other people and not just about how you feel or how you would react or act upon certain situations, then there could be a little room for more inclusion. Some of the other barriers are stereotypes, prejudice, and ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is where a group of people tend to think that their culture or their beliefs are more superior than other cultures and/or beliefs. Some of the solutions that organizations can come up with is more education and team building functions. Some of these categories, though, personal experiences are good solutions to if you're willing to change the way you think. And that's kind of like more of a biblical solution, like the renewing of your mind. And then transparency is a solution that organizations can come up with when you have barriers that deal with the perceived threat of loss and unequal access to organizational networks. For the perceived threat of loss, I'd like to think if you're a Christian, you're going to have faith that no matter what the outcome is, it's always going to work out for your good. Next slide. Globalization. Globalization is not a new concept amongst organizations. When I remember being stationed in Europe in the late 90s, or in the late 80s, early 90s, there was already a Walmart there. There was already McDonald's there. It's just that now technology is increasing at a rapid pace. So this is allowing businesses easier access to be able to operate businesses or conduct their businesses abroad. Next slide. Cultural competence. Cultural competence is the ability to interact effectively with people of different cultures. Some of the points on this slide, we have the awareness of own cultural worldview, the attitude toward cultural differences, the knowledge of different worldviews, and cross-cultural skills. Now, cross-cultural skills is how a person practices cultural competence, including nonverbal communications, to be effective. For example, if you're in another country and you fold your arms like this could be a sign of defense or aggression. Whereas in our culture, we tend to just fold our arms and lean back in the chair and not have any type of meaning behind that action. Next slide. Technology. As I stated in the previous slide, technology is growing at a rapid pace. You basically can conduct your business while sunbathing on your new pool in your backyard. The only downfall of technology is that it brings a sense of loss of personal communications between people and organizations. Next slide. Ethics and corporate governance. Ethics is a person's belief regarding what is right or wrong in a given situation. This also applies to organizations. So when you talk about managerial ethics, it's what their beliefs are and how the organization treats the employees, how the employees treat the organization, and how the employee and the organization treat outside agencies. And finally, employment relations. Again, the chapter talks about new employees and how well organizations engage them. At my job, management currently conducts 30, 60, 90, 120, and 180-day meetings just to ensure that new employees have everything they need to succeed at their job. We also, again, use the huddles. The huddles make sure that everyone's being engaged and capturing ideas and innovations. So in my conclusion, and my question to my class is, what are your ideas to help break some of the barriers of inclusion as it pertains to business? Thank you, and have a good night.